Hello and welcome to our monthly multidisciplinary webinar hosted by ICAT Consulting. Today's topic, this month's topic, consulting best practices, how to become a trusted advisor. Now, we will begin shortly, but in the meantime, join us in the chat and please provide your full name so that we can greet you. Also, we know that many of our guests are tuning in not only from the United States, but overseas as well. So share your city and country with your name so that we can see just how global our reach has become. So we'll go into the chat and acknowledge you now. Hello there, Carolyn from Arlington, Virginia, welcome. And Donna from Lakeland, Florida, we're glad to have you. Hello there, Freshta. Welcome from Alexandria. And Tanya from Virginia Beach. Hello to you too. Hello, Kimberly and Dawit. John from Washington, D.C., welcome, welcome. Mike, great to see you from Boise. Diona from London, welcome. So good to see you here. Now it's not too late to share the wealth and invite a friend or a colleague to tune in as well. Someone who'd love to hear about best practices in the field of consulting. And again, if you're tuning in live and haven't already done so, we would love to greet you by name. So let us know your full name and where you're tuning in from in the chat box so that we can greet you in the chat. Hello there, Todd. Welcome from Florida. Now, these webinars, the multidisciplinary webinar, they take place on the fourth Thursday of every month at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And they're intended for professionals and leaders who want to develop a multidisciplinary awareness of various disciplines ranging from emerging and trending technologies, organizational improvement, engineering, data analytics, social transformation, and other topics. The webinar is recorded and circulated for the benefit of professionals who are within our professional circle. These webinars are hosted by ICAT Professional Services, an organization that is committed to making your people and data greater. ICAT Consulting is your partner for professional development, talent source, data analytics, and societal impact. Service offerings include Career Academy, outsourcing staffing and recruitment, applied data analytics, and social enterprise. To learn more about ICAT, please visit www.icat.net. ICAT Career Academy credentialed training offers the following credentialed programs: Scaled Agile POPM, CompTIA A+, CompTIA Network Plus, CompTIA Security Plus, and Agile Instructional Design Practitioner. For the career seekers that are tuning in, you may be wondering how to make yourself stand out from the stack of resumes and the opportunities that you're pursuing. And while credentials and skills may get you in the door, employment readiness is what makes you stand out from other candidates. And so there are unique employment readiness features at ICAT Career Academy. They include certification exam prep, portfolio development, informational interviews, cohort peer support, coaching support, and professional development. If you want to learn more about how ICAT takes a job seeker from novice to a highly trained professional, we encourage you to visit www.icat.net. ICAT is also co-sponsoring an upcoming training with ISPI Potomac on Scaled Agile Product Owner Product Manager, or POPM for short. This special training takes place on June 8th through 11th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you are looking to sharpen your skills in Scaled Agile p.o.p.m. Visit the ICAT website or ISPI Potomac website for more information and registration details. Now, these enriching monthly multidisciplinary webinars wouldn't be possible without the support of our sponsors. So we will now share a few details about our sponsor organizations. And as we share, feel free to take a screenshot of the companies and organizations that you would like to connect with. So we will start with ISPI Potomac, our first event co-sponsor. ISPI Potomac is the professional home for innovative leaders, educators, consultants, and designers in the federal, state, and local government, as well as international development, education, non-governmental organizations around the world. Members of ISPI Potomac share a commitment to community, collaboration, and co-creation to help make our world a better place for all. So at this time, as we appreciate our illustrious sponsors, without whom we could not provide this professional community or this service to our professional community, we would like to invite you just to share a few words about your organizations. So we open the floor to a representative from ISPI Potomac, who is here to just share a few words on behalf of the organization.
Jordan, I'm not sure Peter Baverso, who is president of ISPI Potomac, is here. If not, I'm a member. I'm Gabe Hamda. I'm a member of ISPI Potomac. It's one of the best professional organizations in the Washington, D.C. area. And actually, their reach is global. They are very community engaged. I consider ISPI Potomac my professional home, where I get a lot of professional development and encourage everyone interested who is in the learning profession to join ISPI in your area or ISPI Potomac. It's a fine, fine organization. Love them.
That's so wonderful to hear. Thank you for sharing, Gabe.
Thank
and
you.
next, we'd like to hear from a representative from ICAT Professional Services, who would just share a few words about the organization.
Sure. I guess I'm going to be the spokesperson today, huh?
You are.
Yes. My name is Gabe Hamda. I'm president and CEO, founder of ICAT Consulting. In essence, my role is I'm the smile, or I'm the kind of the friendly cheerleader of the team. That's my role, because I'm surrounded by the most talented people on ICAT Professional Services. I want to tell you that we have recently been rebranded as from ICAT Consulting to ICAT Professional Services, and also we are approved as a social enterprise. What that means is we care about social impact or community impact and sustainability. What it also means is that we collaborate with other organizations to bring value, such as the collaboration we have with the ISPI Potomac, as well as with Professionista, Jordan's organization. So we welcome collaboration with other organizations who want to collaborate to bring value and positive social impact to our society. That being said, in the future, all these webinars that we conduct, if you are interested in presenting, or if you have ideas on topics that you are interested in, please reach out to me. Most of you, you know me, I know you, I know where you live, I even know your bank account. So reach out to me. And also, ICAT hosts a virtual roadshow on Fridays at 1 p.m., which means this is an opportunity for people who are interested in learning about ICAT to attend and learn more about ICAT, our story, and the things we do. So if you are interested in collaborating, using our services, or refer us, or just curious, please let me know and we'll schedule you to join us on one of the Fridays. With that, I'm so delighted to be here. I can't wait to hear the presentations. And Jody, and thank you for being an amazing collaborator.
Thank you so much, Gabe. And so even as we move forward with our current webinar at hand, and we continue to provide this service to our professional community, we encourage you to join us for the next one. So be sure to mark your calendars for the next webinar on the date that you see on your screen, Thursday, May 27th, 2021 at noon Eastern Time, where we will discuss machine learning, a system's ability to analyze data for rapid decision making. Now, if you've ever been on the road, made a wrong turn, and had your GPS to redirect you so that you could still make it to your destination, then you have benefited from machine learning. But what exactly is machine learning, do you ask? Well, we've got some answers, and we invite you to join us for our next webinar where we will dig into some of the mechanics of machine learning and go beyond just the obvious benefits to teach you a bit more about the field. Now, for those of you who are joining us live, you have several webinar tools that you can use to enhance your experience. We invite you to engage in the chat and share any questions, comments, suggestions, and more that you may have. And if time permits and we're able to open the floor for Q&A, you may raise your hand virtually to ask a question and use the unmute feature to ask your question live when you're called upon. We do ask that all video remains off throughout the webinar and audio remain on mute unless you're called on to speak. Keeping video and audio off helps us to keep the focus on the presentation at hand. So we thank you in advance for honoring these standards. And if you're joining us from the Zoom mobile app or desktop site, the place to make your presence known is in our chat. Let us know what you think of the webinar in the chat area, and we appreciate your feedback and thank you for it in advance. Now, if you're joining us by dialing in by phone, we encourage you to update your Zoom settings to display your name and where you're tuning in from instead of your phone number, just so we can acknowledge you. Now for the topic at hand, the main event. I am Jody Ann Bigby, and I will be moderating today's panel. Today's multidisciplinary webinar features experts in the field of consulting. Now, consulting is not just for professionals in the field who go from organization to organization giving advice. You are probably already a consultant in your own right, in your everyday life, at work, at home, and a few other places in between. And if you want to be an advisor that people can truly trust with their most important decisions, both great and small, then I encourage you to listen with intention, take plenty of notes, as our panel of experts reveal some of their best strategies and powerful insights from their personal and professional consulting experiences. So first, we'll hear from the webinar leader, Jonathan Tessier, certified professional coach, who will speak on becoming a trusted advisor using the bumper car strategy. He will be followed by Kimberly Leonard, educator and instructional designer, who will teach us about the secret power of active listening. Next, you'll hear from Dawit Agonifer, senior data architect, on how to put the customer front and center on data projects. And finally, you'll hear from Anne Quadagno, performance and management consultant, on the difference between consultant versus transactionist. So please join me in welcoming our first panelist to the virtual stage and the webinar leader, Mr. Jonathan Tessier. Jonathan Tessier is an accomplished professional with 20+ years of success in the field of coaching, training, instructional design, and graphic design. So welcome, Jonathan. How are you today?
I am doing great. How are you doing, Jody Ann?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking. And thank you for being with us and contributing to this webinar. So we just want to ask you to just share a little bit more about who you are and what you do, and to start the panel with a little known fact about consulting.
All right. Well, thank you again. I've been in the field of training and instructional design for the majority of my career, and that is exactly what I am doing consulting around, instructional design work. Plus, added to that is the idea of graphic design. I have a certification in graphic design as well. And in my own research and studies, I have truly seen how graphic design can enhance learning. So it's great to be able to offer consulting opportunities in both instructional design and graphic design. You know, with instructional design, what I find very interesting, what I'll share with you just real quickly, is that when we're thinking about instructional design, we can't just always be focusing just on content. Actually, another part of instructional design is to make sure that your program is going to make people feel safe when they're taking your program. That may sound odd, but even as adults, we know that learning is trial and error. And there's this sort of unspoken, unconscious approach to training that if someone's being said, you need to take this training or you need to go to this training, there's something being implied, or at least that's how we sometimes perceive it, that we don't know something or that we don't have all the answers that we think we do. So with instructional design, it's very important that you're always taking into consideration in your design the opportunity to create a safe space for people, to let them know that it's okay to make mistakes, that that's how we learn, and that in the end they're going to be successful with the program that they're going to be going through. So always keep that in mind. And then one other quick thing to always keep in mind when it comes to instructional design: the best training not only gives people content, but also helps them to change their behavior. Both are important, because you can know lots of things and not change your behavior. And what did you truly gain as a result of that? So there's some little known things about instructional design. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the concept of becoming a trusted advisor in consulting by using what I call the bumper car strategy. So next slide. Now think about this idea of being a trusted advisor. You know, as a consultant, we want to create value that earns us a seat at the client's table, right? And that seat is always reserved, if you think about it, for strategic partners that are going to help that client make critical business decisions. So you have the opportunity to be seen as somebody who's going to have quite a bit of significance on the success of a project. And so when we think about trusted advisor, we want the client to say, you know what, I've got this issue. The first person I'm going to call is you when they have that project in mind, right? And why are they calling you? They're calling you because they do recognize your professionalism, your competency, your ability to help them achieve whatever need they have. You also have to keep in mind that sometimes they're going to call you simply because they're stuck, all right? And therefore they want to pick your brain, or they want to ask that really important question of, if you were me, what would you do? Now, this is the kind of relationship that will lead to you being a trusted advisor. And so this bumper car strategy can help with that perception of you being a trusted advisor. And that's what I want to go through here in my presentation today. And I have an example that happened to me recently that really illustrates this concept and gets you to understand what it's all about. So with that, next slide. So recently I had a client reach out to me, and they were stuck. They were trying to accomplish something and felt like they were spinning their wheels. And when they feel stuck, that to me is an immediate indication that they need a little push more than anything else. And so a client I have owns a company called Vintage Tradition. And this client reached out to me with a graphic design project. And the client owns this business that makes natural skincare products the way that our ancestors used to make them using organic beef tallow and essential oils. And the client needed a small card developed that they were going to ship with one of their products. Now, the concept of this card is quite simple. And next slide, I'll show you an example of what this card can look like. So on the one side of the card, the idea is to provide information about sharing your reviews of the product, sharing your experience with the company, getting good word of mouth out there about the customer, about the experience you had with the company or with their product. On the flip side of that card, you want to remind customers that if they're not happy, because that can happen, right? You want to remind them that you're there to help make the situation right for them. So, why is it important? And you can put this answer in the chat, or you can speak it out loud if you want to go off mute. Why do you think it's important to try and capture customers who are happy with your product and have them, encourage them to write reviews of the product? Let's hear from a couple people. Why is that so important to capture?
Yes, at this time, we just invite you to plug into the chat. Share your thoughts in the chat on why this particular thing is important. So we have from Tanya.
Others take, okay, yep, go for
She
it.
says that others take this as advice to use the product or not.
Good, yep. Yep. And I'm sure we've all experienced that when we're shopping, especially on Amazon. I know I look for the reviews and I'll look at what a couple people are saying that's good about the product. And then I'll go down to those onesies and look at what a couple people are saying is bad and kind of get a sense of the credibility of those comments. So good.
We have another comment from Mike who says that this is a good thing to do because not only is it good for future marketing, but it also allows for continual improvement.
Absolutely. Yep. You want to hear from the people in the trenches, if you will, on how they're perceiving a product. So, yeah, the same is true for not happy. Now, why do you think the company wants to encourage you to reach out and contact them if you're not happy versus just returning the product? What's the benefit of having them reach out versus just returning it if they're not happy?
So at this time, again, we invite you to share your thoughts on what Jonathan just shared. I know for me, I feel as though it's an opportunity to save the sale and hence, keep a customer.
Good, right. Absolutely, right? I mean, think about it for a moment. If the customer just returns the product, okay, are they going to shop again? Maybe not. Maybe you've lost them. But if you can at least intervene, if you will, and figure out what's causing their unhappiness, you can propose a resolution to that unhappiness. And as Jody Ann just said, save that customer and keep them as a customer.
Shalom in the chat has a great point as well, that it's an opportunity for improvement.
Absolutely. So again, to hear from those people in the trenches about the product and anything, and sometimes it's just small little things that could be due to really change the experience people have with the customer. Well, in this case, and thank you all of you for your feedback. I really appreciate that. In this case, because this client has such a unique product that people aren't used to, let's face it, we're used to skincare products based on chemicals, not skincare products based on organic beef tallow. It helps to help educate these people on what to expect with this product. So that was the idea of the card, is to minimize the number of returns and get feedback from them. At the same time, use as marketing the happiness and the reviews that people have, and get them to share that with others, because it impacts whether or not somebody else decides to buy your product as well. So thank you for that. Now, the client gave me a card as an example of what he liked. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you what that card was. So the client actually got this card when they ordered something on Amazon, and just liked how it captured the essence of what the client wanted to do. Now, I want you to listen to what the client said to me in describing this need of this card, and listen between the lines to how confident or unconfident they are in what they want. So this is what the client said to me. I like the one attached that I received from an Amazon seller. Do you think you could design a card like it? Please feel free to be creative with the layout. I'm not married to the exact text I provided, so if you have suggestions, I'm all ears. We really want people to go to our webpage and see the tips for use to cut down on returns. Do you think you should have different backgrounds for the two sides, or maybe the same background with different color tints, or maybe some font or font color variety, or maybe some background blocking like on our new website to give it some look at the same look and feel as the website? Maybe all the border and corner flushes that you used on our labels would be nice. Or would that be a bad idea because it would squish everything in? But maybe you could put those corner flourishes in the upper two corners. I don't know, because I'm not a design guy. How confident do you feel this client sounds with what they have as an idea? Probably not, right? Sounds like they're just not quite sure of themselves. And so this is an example, when I hear something like this, of using the bumper car strategy. And so the client doesn't need me to necessarily, as a consultant, provide them with an answer. Instead, they just need confirmation on what they already know they want to do, but are unsure of it. And so how is this accomplished? Well, what I'll do is I'll offer a different idea than the one they just proposed, that will then make the client see that what they did propose, they really did like and are committed to. And so what I did is I came up with a completely different card than a lot of the recommendations that the client gave me. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So on the right there, you see what I came up with for the left and right sides of this card. Now, what you may not realize when you look at this is I gave it a different look than what he recommended. I ignored half of his recommendations. I changed the text from what he gave me. Okay, so, you know, what you're basically doing is you're letting the client react to something. And I've seen this time and time again. The customer, the client knows what they want, but they don't have confidence unless they can compare it to and have it look up against something else. Now, why is this important? And also very challenging for a consultant. It's challenging because as a consultant, I'm actually saying offer the clients an idea that you know they're likely going to reject. That might be hard because you're a consultant, right? It's hard to just put yourself out there willingly in a negative light. And yet sometimes that's exactly what's needed. So the moment I submitted this idea, the client came back to me and said, okay, here's what I want to do. Now notice the confidence this client now portrays to me after seeing this idea. Okay, here's what they said. They said, thanks for working on this so quickly. I guess for once, I actually have come up with what I want it to look like. So if you don't mind, maybe you could just do the following and see how it turns out. For the front, make excited bold and leave it brown. Put the corner flourishes that you use on our product labels in the upper corners and even in the lower left corner, but without the border lines like on our web page. Leave the text as written, but change the layout. Make the text black, except make the website brown and underlined. For the back, make the background solid brown like the menu bar on our website. Make problems bold and white. Leave the text as written, but change the layout. Make the website white and underlined. Let's see how that looks. Now, when I read that to you, what do you notice in the response from the client? You likely are noticing that they are speaking with much more confidence in their original idea. And that's the whole bumper car strategy. And that is to make the client realize that what they came up with as an idea to begin with was really good. It's just they don't always trust their intuition. We focus so much on reason and logic rather than on those gut hits we get about what we want something to be. So on the next page here, I took all his ideas, which I knew were good ideas to begin with, but he wasn't sure about, and I put them together, and here's what we came up with. What was great about this is when I showed it to the client, they said, the card looks amazing. And then they said, I could not have done this without you. And yet in my mind, I'm thinking back to, well, what exactly did I do? I did the bumper car. I gave them a little bit of a bump. And that bump was all they needed. And so when we're thinking about being consultants, we can't always just rush in and say, I'm going to provide the answer. Sometimes an answer's not needed. The client already has an answer. We just need to let them realize that it was a good answer. And sometimes that's the role we need to play as consultants. So to sum it up, with the lessons learned in the bumper car strategy, I want to leave you with a couple thoughts. On the next slide. Part of being a consultant, and for me, a big part of it, is bringing the client's ideas into focus, okay? And that doesn't mean that I am going to sit there and worry about showing my worth by telling the client all these wonderful ideas and things they should do, but instead really recognize the fact that the client is just needing me to provide and help them see the confirmation of their own ideas. So this is not to say that we don't and shouldn't be credible, right? We come as a consultant with authority because we've lived out and experienced many things in a particular field. But I think sometimes as consultants, we go in and we try too hard to prove the worth of them signing us up as a consultant to begin with. And yet what I realized in this client experience, even though all I did was bump them a little, what I ended up doing was connecting with the client emotionally. And that's an important piece to remember. Sometimes you can't always be logic and content and answer focused. And as a segue to Kimberly's presentation coming up, think about really listening and how you can connect emotionally with the client. Remember, consulting isn't always about imparting your knowledge and expertise. Many times, all a client needs is just a little bump. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to you, Jody Ann. Thank you all for listening to this experience I had as a consultant.
Wow, thank you so much, Jonathan. I know I was personally taking some really, really great notes from what you shared, and I can already think of a few ways to apply it, even with clients that I'm working with at this time. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. And so
You're
next,
welcome.
thank you so much. So next we have Kimberly Leonard, and we will hear from her on the topic of the secret power of active listening. Now, Kimberly Leonard began her career as a proposal writer and editor for healthcare IT company. And after completing a bachelor's in business administration and marketing, a teaching certification, and a master's degree in education and human development, Kimberly transitioned from full-time teaching to instructional design and consulting. She now leads the Dream Team, creators of ICAT's newest program, hashtag Training Reimagined. Kimberly is passionate about equipping people with the skills and confidence they need to be successful in the career path of their choice. She loves the opportunities consulting provides to build one-on-one relationships with her clients and her team members. So we'll welcome to the virtual stage, Kimberly. How are you today, my dear?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Joanne.
Wonderful. Glad to hear it. So, yes, share with our audience a little bit more about what you do and tell us a little known fact about consulting.
All right. Well, thank you, Jodianne. Thank you, everyone, for having me today. It's great to be with you. And a little bit more about what I'm doing right now. As Jodianne mentioned, my team is putting together a new program with ICAT called Training Reimagined. And one of our specialties is going out and finding all of this amazing content that's now free online and bringing it into our instructional design realm where we can make that content more engaging and more meaningful. We can add learning activities and assessments and the ability to really make that learning accountable for students to take something away that they might not otherwise find on their own. So little known fact about consulting. I mean, really my whole presentation today is about the little known idea that listening really can be your superpower. So with that, if we can go to the next slide, one thing I would love for everyone here to do right now is put in the chat what you think your superpower is. And what I mean by superpower is what is the skill that you tend to share as your number one strength whenever you're in a job interview, a conversation with someone important, maybe even your family. What's your go-to? This is something I know I'm good at. Please share that really quick for us in the chat. And it's not a trick question, so there's no right or wrong answer.
Well, Tanya has shared in the chat that writing skills are her superpower, and Jonathan has said connectedness, so seeing where there are holes. Todd has shared that his superpower is negotiation. Donna, her superpower is planning and organization. These are some incredible superpowers. So for those of you who may be leading teams and you're looking for someone who has these superpowers, hey, you may want to connect with them in our chat. We also have Shalom, who has shared her superpower, which is planning, and hers is relationships. Carolyn, her superpower is that she can let go and stay present to listen. Wow, that's a really good one.
Awesome. Well, Carolyn, it sounds like you should be presenting with me because that's a great point and one of the things that we will be talking about today. Awesome.
We also have in the chat Gabe, who says that cheerleading is his superpower. I know for me, my superpower is communication, just lending my voice to things that I believe in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I feel like I know everyone here on the call just a little bit better. And Mike, I love your comment. We just love data and making it shine. That's so, that's such an amazing skill that I think is becoming more and more prevalent in our industry. So thank you everybody again. So yes, I wanted to bring this to your attention just because the reason I called this the secret power of active listening is because I know for me, I have never actually put listening on my resume. However, in the last several months, as I have been increasing my interaction with clients, I've received feedback from even Gabe on this call, other people that I work with who have said this is one of my main superpowers. And the more I've really embraced that, the more I've found that it can really increase your capacity to serve your clients. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of my experience and also just some research I've done on the power of listening and how we go about making ourselves more skilled in this area. So I am going to be referencing an article from the Harvard Business Review. And in that article, there is an example, sort of a case study with a woman named Janet. So just to give you that background, and we can go on to the next slide. So in terms of the reasons for listening, as you know, my background is in academics and education, and this is a statement that we use in the teaching world, which is before we want to know what you know, we want to know that you care. And this is because students tend to trust the teachers who they know actually care about them as people and not just as someone taking their class. And I really feel the same thing applies here. As much as clients reach out to us to help them in their business, it goes so far for them to know that we also value the relationship we build as humans, to show them that we care about them as people. Again, I know that I have some colleagues here that are amazing at greeting clients with icebreakers and different things to make sure that we have that personal check-in before we jump into the task at hand. What this does is it really builds your trust and loyalty and the commitment in the relationship between you and your client. And the last point on the why is that really I have found listening up front is a lot more strategic than presenting up front. So as Jonathan referenced, he really spent a lot of time with his client, understanding how the client was feeling about this idea, listening to what the client wanted. And if Jonathan hadn't realized that that client already had a great idea, he might have presented something that wouldn't have achieved that amazing goal in the end. Because as he said, his client really did know what he wanted. He just needed that extra boost of confidence. So you'll find that the more you listen, the more you might actually discover something that was already there, or just insights into what is important to the client, what are their priorities, what do they really care about, and that will make you a more strategic consultant for them, someone who can bring in new ideas that they've already even thought of. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So in talking about the how, there are 4 ideas that I'm going to share with you on how we can improve our listening. So going back to this idea of Janet, Janet received feedback from her colleagues that she really needed to work on her active listening because one, in meetings, even though she was the leader and the one presenting information, her colleagues often felt like she wasn't able to answer their questions, and they felt like they weren't being heard. They also felt like when they shared information in a meeting, Janet didn't seem to take that information away accurately. So the takeaways she had from what they said were not what they were trying to convey. And the first thing she realized is that she wasn't listening to the dialogue in a meeting because she was so focused on her own performance that she couldn't really stop and listen to what was being said around her. I think this is something that all of us can slip into whenever we're in a new situation. Whenever we feel self-conscious or nervous because we have a new audience, we can tend to get focused on, oh my goodness, am I saying everything correctly? Am I making myself clear? Do I come across as confident? And the problem with that is that then we're missing out on all of the amazing information that is being shared with us and the opportunity to connect with the people in the room. So I would encourage you as much as possible to ignore that inner voice when you're in a meeting so that you can listen to what's being said. Let's go to the next one, please. The next is expanding how we see our role. And Jonathan actually touched on this in his presentation. We can get wrapped up sometimes in that we are supposed to provide the solution to the client. However, today is all about becoming a trusted advisor, which means we need to be aware that not only do we present, but we also listen. We're also somewhat of a sounding board for what the client has to say. Let's go to the next one, please. Putting aside our fear and anticipation. So especially in a situation where there's a potential conflict or things seem to be a little bit more difficult than we anticipated, we can tend to jump to the defensive mode. We can tend to start to think, oh my goodness, I have to come up with the perfect response to what's being said or this client's concern. And again, we have to a little bit try to fight that fight or flight response that rises up on the inside of us. If we can take a breath and say, what's going to help me really solve this conflict is hearing entirely what the client is feeling, the tone in their voice, what is the priority that they have. Because if we're too quick to jump in with what we think is a solution, we might miss the root of the problem, or we might miss what the client is more concerned about, which might be a side piece of the issue. So it's really important to listen, especially when there's a difficult conversation where we all need to be aligned. Go to the next slide, please. And this is the fourth one. So being open to having your mind changed is also important. Janet realized that she was trying to be assertive. She was trying to appear confident and make sure that she brought a strong perspective, which we know is important. However, it can come across as having your mind already made up. It can come across as not being approachable. And those things are really important, not only as a consultant, but as a leader. People need to know that they can present a new idea, that we can brainstorm together, rather than just bringing something from the beginning. And one more slide, please. So my final takeaway is to think about how you can have leadership presence without always having to be the one speaking. So again, we respect those who we know respect us. We respect those who we know care about us. And so I would just encourage you again, think about when are some times that I can actually take a step back and I can ask a simple question, like, tell me what you're thinking towards this problem, or what would you like to see? Those really open-ended questions allow the client to confide in us, maybe what they're feeling, what they're concerned about, maybe even their dreams and their goals for the future in a way that will actually expand how we can work together and maybe even provide some new opportunities where we didn't even know there was another solution we could offer. So I encourage you as you go forward to think about how powerful listening can be in your personal and professional life. And with that, I'll pass it back to Jody Ann. Thank you.
That was great, Kimberly. I wanted to actually highlight your final takeaway and something that I took away from that. Oftentimes, as consultants, you'll connect with a potential client, a prospective client, and while they love the solution that you're proposing in that sort of discovery stage, they may have objections. It may be related to a certain aspect of the project, whether it be budget or timeline or some aspect of the project. And a way that I have found that's in alignment with what you just shared is just asking them to tell me about that. So if it's a budgetary issue, tell me about that. And oftentimes they will help you to get to the root of what that issue is, and you can find a solution that is mutually beneficial, and to your point, open them up to a new possibility. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now for our next panelist, we have Dawit Agonifer. And Dawit Agonifer is a data architect who manages client data projects on premise and in cloud environments. Dawit received his master's degree in mathematics from the University of Denver and has conducted end-to-end data projects for over 20 years. And so now we welcome Dawit Agonifer to the virtual stage to share from his expertise in the field of consulting.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. And as I'm presenting now, I've learned quite a bit from the prior presenters as well. and consulting. My name is Dawit Gonfer, and I've been doing data management, data related work since Access 95. That was really a great solution back then, and have grown with it. So I have a quick question for you guys. How much data do you guys think each person produces every second? Could be a
So-
guess. Could be...
We invite our audience to share your guesstimates in the chat of how much data do you believe we produce per second. So we'll just give it a few seconds here. It'll be
Sure.
interesting to see your responses. Now, Tanya has a question. How do you measure that? Is it, well, we have gigabytes?
Yeah, in megs, gigabytes, whatever. However we measure data, digital data.
And to further clarify the question, is it individually or as, collectively as the human race?
Yes, collectively, thank you for clarifying. Collectively, the human race produces a whole bunch divided by the number of people in the world. Is quite a bit of data.
Mm-hmm.
So
So Anne has proposed 10 gigs per person. Shalom has proposed 36 per person. Carolyn, she simply said thousands of data points, whereas Jonathan says gigabytes worth of data. And Gabe says, he just says lots of data.
Yeah, lots of data.
Just lots and lots.
Okay, that's in the range. Yes. Right now, so the estimate currently is about 1.7 meg per second per person. This includes everyone in the world. We're generating a lot of data, and companies really don't know how to deal with it, or they're intimidated by it. Can we go to the next slide, please? So right now, the data consulting world is very lucrative. It's in the negative employment, really, if you know what you're doing. Companies are, again, they hear these buzzwords, and I'm definitely going to attend the machine learning session next month here at ICAT. But yeah, people hear machine learning, AI, what are we missing? Company A, B, C are doing these great things. How do we improve our visualization? How do we improve our performance? How do we data mine? How do we do all these great things? So there is a lot to be done for these clients, lots of projects out there that are over budget, and clients need simple, optimal solutions. And right now, a lot of people are stuck with solutions that were proposed many years ago. Domain knowledge experts leave the company. Nobody wants to touch that project, and don't touch that, because we have a lot of our business logic in there, and we got to keep using it. So there is lots of projects, and we as data architects or as consultants need to understand and hear from the client. The company is in business for a reason. They have something that worked at some point. It may need some improvement, but we can't assume, okay, this companies don't know what they're doing. So the listening part that was talked about earlier, what are we trying to do? How do we propose a solution after listening to what they're doing and what their business needs are? Can you go the next slide, please? So a lot of companies feel like they're losing money, and they are losing money because they're not analyzing their data properly. They're not seeing those patterns, that can make them money, or that can give them an edge in the competition, because they are not properly equipped. Their data, maybe they go to some show in Vegas and they saw a shiny tool and they want to implement that, even though that's not really what what they need personally for as a solution. Companies hear big data and all of a sudden they abandon what really works for them. For example, in the data terms, they have a relational model, either Oracle or SQL or MySQL. And now all of a sudden, because everyone is going big data, oh man, we got to go big data. And they really, really fail their project many times. So how, as data architects, as data consultants, then we really have to have a well-rounded view of the data sphere. We can't just simply be experts at one thing and then try to fit the company's solution into that tool. So really, we got to be aware of best practices. How do we do things? How do we, when we go to clients, they've paid so much money to this one consulting company, and there is a trust deficit. And on the client side, they've been using this methodology for a long time, that there is a knowledge deficit on their end. So how do we collaborate with them to make sure that businesses are not scared to take that leap of faith into the new technology where it fits, and have like hybrid solutions where, oh, you know what, the age-old, relational model stuff that you have works for you, so let's keep it. But here, you're getting a lot of IoT data, you're trying to analyze a lot of social media and other unstructured data. So as data consultants, we can't just, rest and say, I am an expert in this field. We got to make sure we can address other solutions. Next slide, please. And so again, this is going back to what is the client's need and how do we meet that? And as we discuss that with them, we can propose solutions, but we do that by asking the right kind of questions. There's big data platforms that can, in the cloud solutions, they're plug and play. Of course, you need some, but a lot of the cloud providers are going to no-code solutions. So understanding what's out there and just doing your proof of concept. You don't just jump, feet first and try and do an end-to-end solution, providing a proof of concept that convinces the client that with the data that you have for your business model, this is a good solution. And just making sure that you're building that trust. And like Jonathan said, you want to be the first person to be cold, especially, if you screw up or you overbill them, or, you charge them many hours and you delivered very little, nobody wants to get back and give you a call. So just understanding, putting our trying to be, put our feet in their shoes, and just making sure that we deliver value and build that long-term relationship so that we can be a trusted advisor. And again, I always encourage people around here in the Denver area to get into the data sphere, because there is lots and lots and lots of jobs out there for the people with even very little training. So as we, engage clients, we need to make sure that, it's a two-way street. We equip ourselves, understand best practices, and then provide solutions, provide value through our consulting. That's all I have. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Dawit. Great perspective. Thank you so much for sharing from your expertise. So next, we have our fourth and final panelist, Ms. Anne Quadagno, Performance and Management Consultant, who will speak about consultant versus transactionist. Anne Quadagno is an innovative and strategic learning leader with a proven ability to design, develop, implement, and lead programs for internal and external clients to achieve business objectives. She focuses on creating distinctive global programs to upskill and reskill employees. She has been in the consulting and learning design space for over 20 years, and her work has improved the business of IBM employees around the world. She has been recognized by ATD, Brandon Hall, Training Magazine, and ISPI. She has an MS in Instructional Systems from Florida State University. Hello, Anne. How are you today?
I'm great, Jody Ann. Thank you so much. And I'm grateful to be here to share some information with everybody. So if you want to go to the next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about being a consultant versus a transactionist. Many of us are really, really good at doing some core task, right? And what we end up doing is really just focusing on that and just providing what that is, especially with data, right? So Dawit talked about data. Well, when we talk about things like data or some foundational information, a lot of times we just talk about it from being a transaction. Yes, you have 500 employees who could do X number of things in this amount of time. Well, anybody can give data. When we're a consultant, we want to take that data and we want to make that data a story. We want to give insight, right? And that's how we become a trusted advisor. We don't just throw over a spreadsheet or throw over, some kind of a quote or here's just the facts, ma'am. What we really do is we provide insight, and that's where we provide value. And when we provide insight and value, that's when we become a trusted advisor. So what I want to know is why do we, if you could in the chat, why do we want to become a trusted advisor? So what are your ideas of why we want to do that versus being a transactionist and just sending over the data, just the facts?
So for those of you who are tuning in live, we encourage you, share in the chat, whether you're in consulting, as a profession, or you are an advisor to family members, friends, colleagues. Why is it that you want to be a trusted advisor? We'd love to hear from you in the chat. So Jonathan has shared that for the purpose of repeat business without having to go out and get the work. Todd has shared that it helps to strengthen relationships. And Gabe has said that his purpose, his intention behind being a trusted advisor is to be helpful.
Great. And keep adding to the chat. And let's go ahead to the next slide, Jody Ann. Well, here's 2 reasons why you want to be a consultant versus a transactionist. And that's because it provides value, which we kind of mentioned. And the biggest thing, and this kind of goes to Jonathan's point, is we want to become essential. If you're a transactionist, they can go and they can get a spreadsheet from anybody. They can get data from anybody. What we really want to do is provide that value, and we want to become essential. If you're essential, what's going to happen? Your client is going to come to you. They're going to look to you as, that's my trusted advisor, right? So they rely on you. And that's what the benefit of becoming a consultant versus a transactionist. And if you want to go to the next one. Great. So how do we do that? Well, you don't forget what it feels like to be the customer, right? So think about it from the customer's perspective. What is it like to be in their shoes? And Kimberly talked about active listening. That's how you figure that out, right? You really listen to that client. You ask the right questions, the probing questions, the open-ended questions, and you kind of get a feel for who they are, right? And then you allow the client to define the terms of the relationship. You know, how friendly is it? How much are they going to let you into the business? And that changes and morphs over time. And that's great, because the more you become a consultant, a trusted advisor, the better that relationship develops. And a lot of times it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? So again, a story, a perspective, an insight. You don't just throw them the data. You don't just throw them, these are the facts. You actually tell them why it matters. You tell them a story with it, and you provide that insight. So that's how you become a consultant versus a transactionist. And some of us may not be comfortable doing that yet, right? So if you have that growth mindset of saying yet, so if you typically provide the data, or you're growing into your role as a consultant, so you're currently, you are the one who just does the research and just presents the facts, challenge yourself to grow the skills of those insights, provide that insight, tell that story. That's how you become essential. That's how you become a trusted advisor. And I'll turn it back over to you, Jody Ann.
Thank you for those insights. And we'd like to actually share a few more from the chat. Dawit has shared that being a trusted advisor, what that allows you to do is to help clients find a solution and to gain repeat business. And Gabe has shared his overall takeaway from each and every one of the panelists today is to really focus and make it all about the client. So true. Such a great insight, Gabe. Thank you for sharing. So now we would like to continue to open the floor to you, to our bonus speakers, those of you who are live in the audience. Again, continue to share in the chat. We want to hear your burning questions about consulting as we get into the Q&A segment of this webinar. What are some things that you'd like to know from any of our panelists, or all of them, that they may have not touched on in their segments? Feel free to ask away in the comments. Now, a question that I have for all of the panelists who would like to answer, I was actually speaking with a young lady just the other day who I invited to this webinar live, and her degree, she just recently finished school. Her degree was in sociology, and she was interested in learning more about how to just get into the field of consulting. So what would you have to say about, to former students, recent graduates who are just getting started and are interested in pursuing a career in consulting? What do you recommend as far as their first steps into the field?
Jody Ann, this is Jonathan, and I would just say that there's a temptation to be a Walmart instead of a mom and pop store. But I think if you really identify a niche that you want to be in and specifically go for that niche, then people will see how good you are in that, and work outside of that niche will then start to come to you. So don't think you have to be Walmart and try and be something to everyone, but instead really focus on that niche, that thing you have to offer.
And Jody Ann, this is Ann. So, you know, when that question's broad about being a consultant, because you can be a consultant working for a company, or you can be a consultant out on your own, right? So if you're a consultant working in a company, that one of the first things I would say, certainly, you know, when you're new in your career, is be a sponge. Be a sponge, listen to everything, look at everything, gather all the data, provide that insight, but just as important is take in everything you can. Have that growth mindset, because that will serve you well as you build your career.
Thank you for those responses. And we have a response from the chat as well about well, not a, yeah, a response to the question, I should say, is encouraging any recent grads or young professionals that are looking to get started in the field of consulting to consider an externship with a consulting group that you trust, like ICAT Consulting. Now we know that ICAT Consulting is one of the illustrious sponsors, actually the host of this webinar series. And if you'd like to learn more, shameless plug, visit www.icat.net.
And Jody, and I put in a question to Kimberly. What's the power of open-ended questions and active listening?
Now, Kimberly had to step away from the live webinar.
Sorry.
However, no worries. No, wonderful question. In fact, I'd like to know the answer as well. So what we will do is reach out to Kimberly and ask her to, deliver perhaps a written response to your question. But thank you for asking. Now, before we close our Q&A, we want to, again, if you are here live, this is your chance to ask those burning questions of our panelists. And we'd also like to take this time to thank the panelists for sharing from their wealth of knowledge on consulting and really just helping us all to become better and more trusted advisors in every sphere of our lives, both personally and professionally. So final questions, going once, going twice. And thank you so much to our wonderful audience for sharing your questions. You have truly added to the conversation and really helped to enhance us all in this online experience. Thank you again. And so we will close with a final note, an invitation to our next multidisciplinary webinar, which is on the topic of machine learning. So we invite you to join us on Thursday, May 27th, 2021 at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, where we will talk about machine learning, and we will hear from our panel of experts concerning a system's ability to analyze data for rapid decision making. Now, again, if you have ever been on the road using a GPS system and missed your turn for any reason, and that GPS was able to rapidly respond with an accurate redirection to your destination, then you have benefited from the power of machine learning. And so on Thursday, May 27th, we will dive into the topic and learn a bit more about the inner workings of machine learning so that you can enhance your knowledge in this area. And for those of you who are joining us live, we encourage you to let us know what you thought about the webinar. Please feel free to share your feedback in the chat and let us know. Reach out with your name and your email address if you need information for future webinars. We do provide the recording to this webinar on YouTube. So feel free to follow us on YouTube at Career Now for this and future webinars. Now we thank you again, our live audience, those who may watch the replay, and of course, our wonderful panelists for gracing our virtual stage and sharing your knowledge on consulting. And to everyone, both present and those who will watch the replay, we thank you for joining us for today's multidisciplinary webinar, and we look forward to sharing with you on the next one. Take care and have a wonderful day.